4:30, August 22nd. Do you know where your real estate agent is? He's sitting in his office. He's got probably about 3 more hours here to go. And it's also episode 12 of the Unknown Real Estate Podcast. And I've been sitting here staring off into space, sort of drawing a blank about what the topic of the week was going to be. We've got Tina Tabor from the Cromford Report had another Zoom call earlier this week. Had some interesting insights on the forbearance, tidal wave, trickle, whatever people think it's going to be. And I was reviewing my earlier videos and stuff, and I noticed I started talking about forbearances a couple weeks ago. And my original position was that it was going to be sort of the same as the shadow inventory that people were talking about way back in the day. These houses that the banks had hidden and squirreled away in their vaults that they were going to dump on the market. And a lot of people held out buying back in 2010, 2011, 2012 when it was pretty much the time to buy because they kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, these shadow inventories. And a couple weeks after that, as the numbers started trickling and I started watch more people, I started getting raw numbers. I started seeing this potential forbearance wave out there, and a lot of people were getting quite concerned about it. And continuing on with that, watching it, going through multiple sources, hearing the different arguments, get sounded out by the different people with their different opinions. I went through this stage of nothing there, oh crap, maybe there's something there, and now I feel like I'm coming full circle on the whole thing. Tina had a really good chart that I screenshotted, and we'll explain it to you here. Then afterwards, we're going to discuss that just a bit. Cromford Report showing properties that are exiting forbearance. These are based on properties that were in forbearance and have left them since June 1st, 2020, when it first went into effect, through February 14th. This would not include any March numbers. And this is a nationwide. As you can see on this thing, you have the people who made their monthly payments during the forbearance periods. They had it, but they were still making their payments, was 27.9. Ones that paid off their loans due to a sale or money from grandma or whatever was at 7.5. There were 15.4 past due payments that were brought current. All these things are shown in green because they're considered paid in full, as somebody successfully exited forbearance. The ones who were able to work out a loan repayment plan were 33.6, of which 25.8 of them were loan deferrals, where they're just deferring the loans to the end of the payment, and 7.8 of them were the loan modification, where they would just wrap that amount in, recalculate the amortization, and change the loan payments. The 15.6% that are still in trouble on these leaving are the 13.8 no loss mitigation plan, which means they have no plan whatsoever to happen. And then there's a 1.8 repayment plans that were done with short sales or deed and lose. So of these, we're looking at 15.6% of the ones who have exited so far are still in trouble, or about 7,176 per state average. This is very rough calculation and everything like that, but it does show that the majority of people, 50% are getting out paid in full, either selling their house because they're never going to be able to make their payments up, or it's time to move, making their payments up, or we're never actually missing payments at all, but they were still being counted as a forbearance property. And the loan deferrals and the loan modifications, this is not considered a successful exit by the banks because the money's not getting paid to them up front, but it can be considered successful to the homeowner because they got their loan modified, or they're getting those payments wrapped on and added to the end of their loan as a deferral. It's that 15.6%. These are the people who were concerned about, but 7,176 is a lot better than that 19,000 FHA only loans that we were looking at here. So that was I think that was the main takeaway from Tina's Zoom call that she had last Monday. Is when we were looking at the 19,000 FHA, and that's just the FHA, not the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac conventional non-QM loans. That's still a substantial number to start with, but we're looking at over 50% of those the loans out there to date have been recovered successfully by the banks, and we're only looking at maybe 15% total becoming an issue, potential issue, because they have not gotten to the point. We're just forbearances are still in place. The government has not said, okay, banks, go get your properties or go get your money back. The Consumer Credit Protection Bureau has sent a couple of threatening memos out, going, "You better have a plan, or we're gonna be coming after you." So, this all being said, I'm back on the shadow inventory side of the argument. I just don't. I'm not going to say it won't have an impact. I mean, you drop, even 1,000 homes on the market right now. You drop 1,000 homes on the market right now, you're going to be looking at increasing inventory by 25%. That will have an impact. I just don't see it being the economy crusher that the doom and gloom rumors have been preaching for a bit. Mark this date and time, because a year from now I could be sitting there telling you I'm completely wrong. And I will be sitting there telling you I'm completely wrong, because as you notice, I call it out, when my opinions change on things, and my opinion changes based on the information I get. Never trust anybody who's had the same opinion about something that involves, math and moving numbers for the last 10 years. That's, they're not an objective player. They're probably selling you a book. So the one of the things I wanted to point out is we have these houses that are still in forbearance. We have these houses that have come out of forbearance. The ones who have come out of forbearance have just hit the point where it's like, okay, we're not going to need it. Let's just pull out. They write a check. Or there's a good chunk of properties there that even though they were in forbearance, they were still making their monthly payment. They just called up the bank and said, hey, can we go into forbearance, but we will continue to make the payments as we can. And they get counted as forbearances, but they were never in default. And they were never late. So we're in this weird position where we have multiple different numbers, and some people are reporting certain numbers a certain way. The same type of number they're reporting somewhere separate, and it's really easy to get things confused at that point. So just remember, as we move across on this thing, is when you read a report on this, or I say a report and I'm quoting a report, let's just make sure we're comparing apples to apples across the board on this thing. Regardless of what we calculate out at the end of the day, if only 15%, if 15% of those 19,000 would come up as a foreclosure or as a short sale or as a deed in lieu, which is honestly just as good as a foreclosure, because the bank is still getting your property at the end of the day. You're, where we are still going to have inventory come on. The question is it going to be so much that it breaks the bank? And trust me, the banks won't get broken on this thing. They'll get bailed out like they did last time. But that's where we're at right now. Other reasons why you can't really compare us to 08. And it drives me nuts where everybody keeps saying 08, 08, 08. I say 08. But 08 is when the crash started. The zenith of the arc, right, was the second quarter of 06. And that's when house prices stopped growing. It did not go straight up and come straight down. It was a parabolic arc. And there was this little glide point up there going from second quarter of 06 to the fourth quarter of 07, where housing stayed flat. And that a lot of that was just momentum. And it was just, and then in 07, when the adjustable rate mortgages started coming and everything else started coming loose, then we started the beginnings of the crash that came out in 08. And you never, short of California earthquakes and East Coast hurricanes, you never see home values suddenly start dropping, Monday to Tuesday. Monday you're up 5,000. Tuesday all of a sudden you're down 3. What the hell just happened? This isn't a stock, right? It does not move that quickly. And I was having this conversation with somebody earlier this week, and I wanted to reiterate this again, is that when the housing market is still going up, And the housing market is still going up, although it is slowing. And we're going to go over some numbers here in a few seconds. Even if it's slowing going up, it's still going up. Look at look at a rocket. I don't know how many of you kids were geeks when you were young, and you guys get those little model rockets with little Estes engines in there, and you'd set that sucker off. The rocket burns for 5 seconds, and it goes from 0 to 120 miles an hour like that. It keeps going up. It just doesn't have any more force, right? Gravity starts taking pull, and it slows down, and then it hits the top, and then it starts to fall. And depending on your charge on that is when the parachute deploys. And so even if we stop going up as quick as we have been, and we're going up really quick, it will start slowing first before we see that flip over. And it would have to get pretty serious to the point where we no longer we go below what would be the traditional 2% a year appreciation, 2.5%. Some people even argue that it's 3.5, that traditionally real estate does. And that 2.5 appreciation, the 2% appreciation, is the historical average since they started calculating these numbers. We're in a run-up, and we're in a serious run-up right now. Another thing I'd like to mention is that buying in 04 and 05, it was going up, but it was not going as spectacularly up as was in 06. That's when the real serious speculation kicked in. And that speculation was just simply that. It truly was speculation. Since then, and what we have going on now, here in Arizona, we actually flipped over our labor force by 0.1%. And that doesn't seem like a lot. But since the pandemic started, all right, from the time prior to it, we actually have more people in the labor force in Arizona than we did before COVID kicked off. And that's significant. We have more people moving to Arizona. Remember that chart that I showed you last week or a couple weeks ago, where people in Arizona, there were more people coming in Arizona now than houses are being built now. It used to be we were building more houses now than population. More housings were coming in on the market than new people were coming in Arizona. And there's various reasons why you can have that. You could have just a simple aging population, right? You slow down having kids, but the kids that have been born are turning, 22, 23, 24, that magic 33 years old when people traditionally buy their first home. And then you can have more houses than population growth, but it will catch up with you sooner or later. So labor force we're in a better place than we were labor force wise than this time last year. Because you remember this time last year, April is when all hell broke loose in real estate because of the COVID thing. If you look at the numbers, we went from about 10,000 and we peaked out at 14,600 there at a time. I mean, people were dropping out of contracts right and left, and houses were going back onto the market. A couple of the iBuyers, names that I'm not going to mention, Article 15, were literally, they just canceled contracts. Right? They called up every person that they were in a contract saying, hey, we're going to buy your house and you get to move out at the time of your choosing. And they suddenly said, hey, remember how we were going to let you move out at the time of your choosing? Yeah, we're not buying your house. Bye. Click. And they would just bail out, and they took the earnest money hit because they did not want to have that many houses on the contract in their hopper to deal with in case a crash really did happen. So you saw a lot of property. Okay, we went from 10,000 to 14. That's a 40% increase in the course of about 2 months as people started bailing out and whatnot. And builders were having people just cancel the building contract and walk away from the earnest money on that. A whole bunch of agents, a whole bunch of houses that were under contract suddenly had issues come up that normally would not be a problem with the inspection. And it's like, hey, we don't want the house, the toilet seat rocks. You also had other buyers bailing out of it along the lines of, yeah, the inspection was good, we did that, but the appraisal missed by $5,000. We're going to exercise our contingency and just get out right there. This is where we were at a year ago, and just remember, in a year ago, we've gone from about 14,000 listings to a little bit over 4,000 plus today, because people did eventually start buying houses again. A lot of people came in from California because they did not want to live in California, and they realized, hey, bosses let me work from home. I can go work from home in Phoenix. A lot of people decided, this is really cool living, this many people in the household, until you realize that when everybody's working from home, the house is too small and we got to get out, right? It's time for the kids to launch. A couple people realized not only is this house too small, but I just can't live in it with that person on the couch. That person has to leave. This created a lot more of that stimulus, and interest rates came down a lot. As we are right now, the Cromford report's number is at 486 is their market rating. 100 is considered a normal market. They're at 486. That's actually come down a bit. I think we were quoting 500s here a couple weeks ago. Demand is starting to trickle down. We're at 109 on our normal demand. Normally it should be 100. So for where we should have 100 buyers, we have 109. And it is still the supply issue, right? We have 22.4, all right, where it should be 100. So we have 109 buyers out there searching for 22 houses. So it is still a good time to be a seller, and there's still a lot of things going on. I'm going to read you a text here that one of our agents got from another agent. He wrote an offer on a property. It was listed at 305. Remember that number. Burn that number in your head. Right. He wrote an offer this weekend for 305. He did not get it. I know he went over 305, but the house was listed at 305. I'm just going to read this off to you. Hello, agent. Thank you for submitting this offer for my client's consideration. We received an overwhelming response to this listing with 38 offers in total, and all went over asking, some with an escalation clause. The bidding war went to a price as high as $375 at $70,000 over list. Ultimately, the sellers have accepted an offer with a final purchase price of $363,000 and includes a low appraisal cash guarantee of $30,000. For this reason, your client's offer was not accepted. My heart truly goes out for the buyers in this market. The inventory is low and the bidding is crazy. It's tough. I wish you and your client all the luck in their buying journey. So let's just break that down too. It eventually went for $363. Right. Why didn't they take the $375? Because the buyer actually put an additional $30,000 on that contract. They said, we will pay $30,000 over the appraised value in case the appraisal misses. Odds are everybody knew that house was not going to appraise for $363. Right? Everybody definitely knew it wasn't going to pay appraise for $375. If they didn't take the $375, I guarantee it, because that was not a cash $375 offer. That was a finance $375 offer. And there are buyers out there, and there are buyers agents out there who will deliberately overbid and then hope when the appraisal comes in, they can then argue the appraisal. And they can renegotiate at that point, because the buyer has the opportunity to walk away unless they waive the appraisal contingency. But it's a really good time to renegotiate with the seller and go, hey, appraisal came in at $350. Can you go with $350? All right, maybe we can go with $360 because we got a little cash out of pocket. But to sit there and just put it on the table right off the bat, hey, if we're low on the appraisal, we will go up to $30,000 over on the appraiser contingency. Right, if that thing appraises at $333, all right, the seller's getting the $363 that they're under contract for, because the buyer has already upfront saying they're going to put in that extra $30. That's just one story from this weekend. And ironically enough, I actually saw that house that agent put an offer in. I was going to show it to my clients that I was at with this weekend, but I couldn't find an open time slot to actually go look at it. So, yeah, 38 offers. That's what 109 people looking at 22 houses gets you. It gets you 39 offers on a house that's listed at 305. Right? 60 in the price period between 250 and 360, and this is from the Cromford report and Tina. Between the 250 and 360, 61% of houses out there are closing over asking, and they're closing over asking by an average of $11,000 to $15,000. So this is obviously an outlier, but let's just take a look at that, because you're thinking, all right, if 61% of them are going for over asking, then how do we know that we need to go over asking on every bid, because 40% of the time they don't. And that's a good suggestion. But one of the things, there's two things you need to understand. One, agents are getting sneaky, and we're seeing a lot of this. We were talking about the office, and I've looked at it myself. They will list a house at 305, and then immediately after it goes under contract, they go in and they change the asking price, the listing price in the MLS, to whatever the contract price was. I haven't looked at that house in particular, but there's a chance out there you could go and look that up, and instead of being 305, you're suddenly going to see that house as listed for 363. Why is that? It's because the seller's agent and the seller want to re-cement in everybody's mind, in case that property comes back on the market, this is what we've accepted before. This is the new normal. If that agent right there does not take all 38 of these offers and walk and make sure that the appraiser gets to see them, all right, hey, by the way, this is the offer we picked with these conditions. Here's all the other offers, and you notice somebody actually was offering 375. Right? Just to give the appraiser an understanding what the market is, because they do understand what the market is. And the other thing is, they also know what happens when they look at the MLS listing. When they're doing the appraisal, they will look at the listing. They're going to be looking at how long was it on the market. They're going to be getting a lot of the numbers to start from on that, so they can start looking at their own comps. And they're going to check the history to see how long it's been on the market and has there been any price changes. And when they look at that and they see, oh, you listed it at 305 and you just moved this up to 363, which is the same as your contract price, I now know that list price that's showing on the MLS is not an accurate number of when it went under contract. And that is another bit of confusion that a lot of people don't understand about appraisals, is the appraiser, I always use the term, they're driving down the road by looking in the rearview mirror. They're looking 3 to 6 months behind them, looking at what the price is. And they're also looking at, when they look at a comp that closed in March, they understand that comparative property actually went under contract in February. So February is when that property was worth what it was worth when it closed. We're starting to get into weeds here, and I probably will need to get a whiteboard at a certain point. But I did get a chance to sit there and listen to another Zoom call with an appraiser. And that's something he was really pointing out, is that when agents start doing these crazy things by, oh, I will just change it so everybody thinks it was normally at 363. And maybe the appraiser won't notice. People notice. Agents notice. And if we were coming back and all of a sudden that house falls back, it's 363 and is back on the market, and stays out there a week or 2 weeks, and my buyers want to take a swing at it, we're not offering 363. We know you had that listed at 305. Right? That's the number we're going to be adjusting our bid off of, our offer off of. So remember, we do have these appraisers who are going to be coming in, and they're going to be changing. They adjust things at the end of the day, and because they adjust things at the end of the day. A lot of these speculative bidding, unless they're backed up by an appraisal contingency waiver or a guarantee of we will pay X amount over appraisal because we have that in our pocket, the numbers that you're hearing, they're going to start settling out somewhere else, and this is going to make making comps really, really interesting for the next 6 to 9 months. The appraiser that I was listening to mentioned something that I almost want to go back and find that video and watch it again. I watched it live, and they said that they're going to put it out as a recording. But he said that medium households in Maricopa went up 4% last month. Now, there was a number bandied around saying that we went up 38% total, what they call year to year, so April to April, April 20th. 20th to April is that we're up 40% from there. If you're a homeowner, congratulations. That's a whole bunch of equity. And my first thought was like, okay, yeah, that's rank speculation. And you can always do things to change the median, like lower houses just don't go on the market. And if the only houses being sold are the more expensive ones, then that's going to drive up your averages. But for this appraiser to come in, and he was talking about how they adjust for time. And it used to be an appraiser did not have to, hey, that thing's three months old. I have to make no adjustment for that whatsoever when I'm looking at this month's comps to do a comp on this one. Nowadays, if they go back 3 months, if I'm looking at a comp from 3 months ago, all right, if it's growing at 12% annually, which it was by the end of 2020, 12 to 18, I think they actually were saying 18%. And another thing with the numbers, if you hear the national numbers, you always got to watch the local numbers. But we were looking at like 18% here, which means that 3 month period, you got to come up 4.5%. Right? So if that house was sitting there and it was appraised at 300 3 months ago, and we got to come up 4.5, that's putting us at what, about 312? 3 months later, that homeowner got $12,000 worth of equity in a 3 month period. And that's what this market is right now. It is, the house that you're seeing right now is literally going to be worth more a month from now. And if last month, and if what the appraiser was saying, and last month was everything to say, that $300,000 house is now worth $312 in a month. So this is all math foo, and ultimately the house that you get into at a price that you get it into is the price you paid for it, and the offer that you made that got that price accepted is the market value, because you had a willing seller selling to a willing buyer, and you had a willing lender that was willing to give money to it, or if it was cash. This is not going to continue on, and it is going to start slowing down, but not for a while. That one I can say unequivocally. Short of Palo Verde nuclear plant blowing up tomorrow or right now, house prices are not going down, by next month. The rate of increase is not going to slow down anytime soon. It's the increase is not going to slow down. It will start slowing down that way, but we're still going to be staying positive. There's nothing out there on the market that has any chance, because we just had the conversation about the supposedly 19,000. That was the potential crusher, and now we're seeing the CFPB, like them or hate them, they're taking the steps necessary to make sure that we do not have 19,000 FHA forbearance properties hitting the market all at the same time, which could have that kind of catastrophic impact on our market. I still, we're supposed to be at 18,000 listings. We're at 4,100 right now. You drop 19 on there, that puts us 23. That puts us over by 5,000. And yeah, we'll chunk through that. But 6 months later, that inventory's gone. At least a year later, that inventory's gone. And so you have a year of, say, no or normal appreciation. And then where are we back? We're back to zero inventory, because the only thing that's going to save us is new houses being built by the builders. And rumor mill came across and could not source this. It's just something that came up on the Cromford podcast. But there was a builder out there that, because of the material issue, finding the breaker boxes, finding the drywall, finding the lumber, they gave their buyers who were under contract an out. Hey, we're delivering the house later than we were expecting. We will allow you out of the contract and give you your money back. And builders never give the money back. Right? And 1,100 buyers who were buying from home builders took that option. All right, so there's 1,100 people who just decided to stay in their house that they were staying in before, or decided to, we're just going to buy something off the shelf. We're not going to have anything spec built for us. And that's 1,100 houses that were supposed to be entering into Maricopa to take care of some of this burden of lack of housing that we have. So, for not knowing what the hell I was going to talk about this podcast, that actually went pretty well. But I am known to ramble. So I'm going to finish up with the actual numbers that I copied down off the MLS on Wednesday. And you guys have a great week. I'll see if I can get you guys another interview coming up soon. And now the numbers for April 21st, 2021. Active listings came in at 4,189, up 103 from the week before. Our pendings are 2,163, up 25 from the previous week, and our closings are 2,526, which is up 363 from the week before. Contracts we're looking for backup offers are 1,344, which is down 30 from the week before, and our contracts with the buyer's contingency are at 86, a down 6. Our coming soons are 1,042, and these are properties that will be showing up on the market in the next 1 to 2 weeks.